Stacy's got some business up in B&T and we need to kind of get two things and let her go do her thing up in the Budget and Tax Committee. So, okay, are we streaming more? Are we good? Okay. Okay, let's go through this list. And issues arose with Senate Bill 74, so we're going to hold that one. And then one other issue, just for your purposes, the Kramer bill, we're gonna hold for today's session. And now let's go to Stacy's stuff. We're gonna start with Senator Augustine's Senate Bill 691. Let's get to that.
Senate Bill 691, Higher Education, Firefighters and EMS Recruitment and Retention, Scholarship and Loan Repayment Assistance. This bill establishes the Maryland Loan Repayment Assistance Program for firefighters and emergency medical service providers. The bill also alters the requirements for the Charles W. Riley Firefighter and Ambulance Rescue Squad Member Scholarship. The bill further requires that the Department of Budget and Management conduct 2 evaluations on expanding support for fire or rescue entities as specified and submit 2 reports to the Governor and General Assembly. There is one amendment in your packet offered by the sponsor, Senator Augustine, beginning on page 8 with the reprint on page 9. And what these amendments do is essentially strike all the provisions relating to the Loan Repayment Assistance Program and the 2 evaluations. There was no opposition at the hearing. It's the changes to the scholarship program eligibility requirements.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Where were we? Questions for Stacy or Sarah Augustine on what was just described?
Yeah, so yeah. I mean, basically we took out the loan repayment part, but we maintained the portions with the eligibility for the scholarship. And that's really, in essence, what's left now at this point from the bill. This was, again, one of the, just to kind of get people back to it, we have the fire and EMS shortage. This is very specifically tailored. We had a work group that looked at that. And one of the recommendations that came out of it really had to do with this education and trying to provide education as a way to help with recruitment and with retention. With that being said, there's been some reluctance on the loan program, the LARP program. And so this is taking that out while still keeping the scholarship portion in to the bill. This is actually what has been voted in the Appropriations Committee across the street. And so I'm not hopeful, but I would just start with the move on the amendment that would basically, it would put us in the same alignment with the appropriation. So I'll move the amendment. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion from Senator Augustine, a second from Vice Chair Kagan on the amendments. Discussion on the amendments. Okay, Senator Croza.
So it sounds like from the work group's recommendations, they made the recommendation for both, but I guess what was it coming down to, a fiscal note issue? Is that why?
Yeah, and I don't think it's just, there have been other folks and our committee council could speak to this, where others have also looked at and not making changes to the loan assistance portion of it. And so the thought process was, if we didn't do that and just do this part of it, the scholarship part, that there wouldn't be the same objections. There've been some objections to making changes to it.
Okay.
So that removes that.
Okay, Vice Chair Kagan.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I had spoken to several people about the idea of including our 911 specialists in this scholarship. And Senator Augustine and I never got to close the loop on that, because we are also in a crisis. And I've been approached by several of you all telling me that your constituents were put on hold or got voicemail or whatever when they were calling 911 with an emergency. Having said that, what I hear Senator Augustine say is, don't mess with this. It's already passed in the House. I regret that, because I do think that this is important, but maybe that's a conversation for next session. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Let's work together on that for sure. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, we had a motion and second on the amendment. Yes, Senator Croza.
If I could just thank the vice chair for advocating, as you know, and I thank you for you worked with me on my work group bill, which this might end up being one of the recommendations if we can't add it to this moving vehicle. So I want to thank you, Madam Vice Chair, and continue to work with you on that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the amendments. All in favor of the amendments that were set forth by Senator Augustine? All in favor? All opposed? Okay, amendments carry. We now have Senate Bill. We've got a motion for Senator Augustine, a second from Senator Gallion. Okay, we're on Senate Bill 691 as amended. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, 691 as amended carries. Stacy, since we don't have Senator Hester back from Finance here, let's just go to Senator Rosa Pep, Senate Bill 1035.
Okay.
Yes, Senator Gallion?
Change the outcome, could her vote be recorded when she gets back and we could go and vote that?
Yeah, well, this is also a Stacy bill, so maybe we could
Oh,
let's.
They
just-
asked for me to come up in B&T, so. if-
Oh, okay, okay, well, no, that's okay. Okay, let's, hopefully, you'll be able to get back here. Okay, let's go up to, Alexis, let's pick up where's Alexis? Right here. We're gonna go to Senator Gallion's Senate Bill 532. Why don't we start with that one?
All right, Senate Bill 532. Find it on the page. Commission to advance lithium ion battery safety in Maryland. This bill creates a commission to advance lithium ion battery safety in Maryland as a 1-year, 7-month commission staffed by the state fire marshal with the purpose of studying and making recommendations on prevention, detection, and suppression of lithium ion battery fires in consumer sectors, transportation sectors, and utility sectors. There are 2 separate amendments from the sponsor in our packet, but taken together, they add 5 members to the commission, 1 representative of Power Plant Research Program, 1 member from the Public Service Commission, 1 from the Maryland Fire and Rescue Institute, 1 of a vehicle dismantling sector, and a battery recycling trade group. In terms of the scope of the commission, it's expanded to include the decommissioning of lithium ion batteries and training for first responders. An interim report is required in the amendments, and it also allows the addition of other members as determined by the commission in consultation with individuals not on the commission.
Okay, Senator Gallion, do you want to add anything here?
No, thank you for the explanation, Alexis. So this is, actually trying to be one of MACO's priority bills that we had an opportunity to work with them on. And, it's a lot to deal, like at home, I have, lithium ion battery for like my weed eater. I even have a chainsaw that runs off that, and then it goes all the way up to, we're now dealing with so many, with our policy, there's gonna be more and more EVs on the road. So as part of that is, dealing with these batteries, and there are safety issues with like car fires, stuff like that we have to deal with. So like, MIFRE's involved with Maryland Fire Rescue Institute as one of the members. We had a lot of folks that wanted to get onto the commission, and we were able, to kind of work through and come, I think, with a reasonable number there. And there's also a little flexibility if they had to bring somebody else, as Alexis mentioned. So I think it's a good balance, and I'd like to move the amendments.
We have a motion on the amendments from Senator Gallion, the sponsor. Is there a second? Senator Simon Ayers, second. Any further discussion on the amendments? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendments, raise your hand. All opposed, those amendments carry. Now we have Senate Bill 532 as amended in front of us. Senator Gallion, you want to move? Okay, we've got a favorable motion for Senator Gallion as amended. Senator Vice Chair Kagan is the second. Okay, further discussion. All in favor of Senate Bill 532 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed, that bill carries unanimously. We're going to next go to back to you, Alexis, on Senate Bill 832.
Senate Bill 832, State Designations, State Natural History Museum, Natural History Society of Maryland. This bill establishes the Natural History Society of Maryland as the State Natural History Museum.
Any amendments?
No amendments.
Okay, any discussion? Any motion? Yes, Senator Augustine.
So the academies, I'm trying to get myself back there. The Maryland Academy of Science. There is a Maryland Academy of Science, and then now it's called, I think it's got a different name to it. It's the that sort of is the catch-all for our science, right? Museum, as it were. And so what is it that we're doing that, since there are these other natural history museums and stuff like that, with this designation? And do we have other museums that are designated in this way, given that, again, it was chartered, the Maryland Academy of Science is our overall science entity, I believe.
I'm looking through the designations that are attached to this fiscal note, and I don't think we have another museum in the state, right? So this would be the only, as far as I know.
It's now called the Maryland Science Center, but it really is the creation of the Maryland Academy of Science, which is our oldest scientific institution, I believe.
Here, let's keep it, everybody. Okay, Senator Augustine has the floor now, and then we'll go to Senator Carrozza and then Senator Washington and Vice Chair Kagan.
The point that I'm
Yeah.
trying to make within that is that within the Maryland Science Center, they also they do natural history. They do a series of, I mean, as it pertains to the way that I saw it, it looked like they were also doing science from the presentations that they shared. I was just trying to get my arms around it. That's all. Now, if it's different, it's fine. I just made me think about it.
Okay. Well, let's open up some questions. Vice Chair Kagan, then we'll just go around and see where we are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I asked questions during the hearing, and I have similar questions to that which has been asked by our good Senator Augustine. If you do a quick Google search on Maryland history museums, we have a ton of them. And I'm not quite sure why this one is more special than the Harriet Tubman Underground Museum, or the Chesapeake, or the Sodderleap, or the Evergreen, or the Calvin, or the Surratt, or the, like, there are a lot. And my biggest concern was the paltry number of hours. I think when we lift something up, they should be available and ready to take advantage of increased presence. And what I've asked in the hearing, literally their exhibit hours are Wednesday from 2 to 6, Thursday from 10 to 2, and the first Sunday of each month from 10 to 2. I'm sure it's a lovely museum, and I personally would love to go visit it, but I don't understand why we would lift these this one, other than that we have a bill here, why we would lift this up above all others. So I'm going to be voting no, unless, of course, it's a move unfavorable, in which case I will be
Okay.
voting yes.
Well, before we take any motions.
I didn't, I just said yes.
Let's go to Senator Washington, then back to Senator Augustine, yeah. And in fact, we might even consider holding it as another option. So
Yeah,
let's just,
Yeah.
let's not rush here. Okay, Senator Washington?
Yeah, I think my preference, rather than see it voted down, I would just like for us to go, I guess there's not the time to describe the difference between natural history and what they do. So part of what they are saying is that they are both collectors and storers of things that aren't, I guess, marketable in some ways, like that they're able to collect things that, you're not going to see in the bigger libraries or the museums, and that they're all different. And you're right, comparing it to, we shouldn't say that they're better than. So the Harriet Tubman Museum is not a Natural History Museum. So it is a special thing. So, I think if there's not the will to understand that this vehicle or doing this is not the right thing, it is worth it to figure out how to keep this collection of Maryland history from being lost. And probably if they did have money and they were able to market themselves as the Natural History Museum, they could get resources. So, it might be that this is not the right vehicle. And so I would agree with that perhaps. But it is a special project.
Okay, Senator Augustine.
Okay. Forgive me, I was just distracted. I knew it was something I wanted to talk about, but I was distracted before when I was saying it. To sort of, and you're right, Senator Croza, I didn't explain it properly. But if you go to their website, first of all, the first thing that you see is a raffle. I mean, which is fine. I mean, I understand they got to raise money and stuff like that, but this is will become something that is for our state. So you go to the website, that's where it starts. But that's where, though, when I go to the site and I look at the fact that they really are, their website is Maryland Nature. And so they really, even there, it's like some misnomers of sorts that are going on here. Like that's the name of the website, which is different than the Natural History Society. So there's also just some confusion about, that's why I went, Senator, to the Maryland Academy of Science, because I'm looking at it and the things that they talk to are really more in the science space and in the nature. And so that's why I was a little thrown off a little bit, and I remain a little bit thrown off by saying that they are, and it goes back to some of what the senator was talking about, like these definitions of what this Natural History Museum would be and what we would be doing if we created, or if we said that this is the definition of like a natural history museum for the state of Maryland. And I just kind of struggle with that.
Okay, Senator Simoner.
Yeah, I just wanted to take it up to a higher level. I know I've been here, I think, like 14 years on this committee. So I've been through a lot of state designations and days. And a lot of people say they're just feel-good bills. And I think what we as a committee have to do is determine if they're ready for prime time and if they made a strong case for it. And that's how I judge each one. So I'm happy to look at this if we can get it to that point and support it. But I would also be remiss if I didn't say, I see 2 state designations on here. And I know I put a bill in for a day, which the department came in saying would help save veterans' lives. And I think that's a very strong case, and there's some others we could do as well. So veterans keep coming to my office and they keep asking, when's it going to get on the list? And I'm just hoping that somehow we could move bills that have strong cases for them as well.
Okay, and yes, so I would associate myself with those comments. This other bill, which we held, just to be clear. Yes, Senator Brooks, and then back to Senator Washington.
Thanks, Chair. I was thinking that the difference between a natural history museum is the interactive nature of it. It's the informative displays, and then it sort of teaches some of the natural things that goes on that we have from the biosphere right here in the state. So I guess that would be the difference from a regular museum. But I think that's the part that would make it a little bit more unique. So,
Okay.
thank you.
Senator Washington, why don't you have the last word?
I was just wondering if the chair would consider a motion to table the vote indefinitely.
Okay, well, I don't know if we need to do that. I think we
Or
can
just
simply
hold it?
hold the bill
I
and,
just
I think that's maybe yeah. So let's hold the Senate bill. What's the number? Senate Bill 832. We're going to hold. Let's just handle it that way, if that's okay. The committee. Okay, let's go down. Alexis, why don't you go down? Let's go down to Senate Bill 1068.
All right, Senate Bill 1068, Human Services 211 and 311 Systems, non-emergency information and referrals. In its original version, this bill would have established an integrated 211 and 311 system and funding for the system within the Department of Human Services. As amended by the sponsor, the amendments of which can be found on pages 28 and 29 of our packet. The bill in its entirety has been stricken and uncodified language has been placed in the latter section, subsection or section 2, with intent language that we adopted through Senator Hester's artificial intelligence bill. That essentially says that it's the intent of the Department of Information Technology to determine the feasibility of a virtual 311 portal. And this is identical to Senator Hester's AI bill that we passed.
Okay. Okay, we've got an amendment from Senator Augustine.
Second.
Senator Kagan's the second. Any discussion on the amendment?
I can just
Yeah,
really
Senator
briefly.
Kagan, why don't you speak to the?
This
to
is very quickly, this is basically belts and suspenders. It's exactly the same language that we passed yesterday in committee and this today on second reader. And just in case there are problems with Senate Bill 818, and I hope there are not, but I think the House bill is a little different, then we've got another vehicle to make sure that the Department of Information Technology moves forward with using artificial intelligence to help solve constituent problems with the 311 system. That's it. No mandate, no money.
Okay, Senator Rosa?
I guess I was just trying to understand when it said evaluate the potential of artificial intelligence in creating a statewide virtual 311 portal. I guess I wanted just to ask the sponsor how you see that coming together.
So again, this is language we've already passed in the bill that was on the Senate floor this morning. It's precisely the same. But to answer the question directly, there are issues around bias. Senator Hester talked about it yesterday. We want to make sure that if it's used in hiring, for example, that it's not tilted for or against any ethnic groups or gender, or geography. And so in the same way, we want to make sure that they figure out all the stuff. AI is not particularly ready today. It's not sort of prime time for government use yet, but it is going to be, and it will save taxpayer money and provide better constituent services than hiring a whole bunch of people to work around the clock to take calls and emails and stuff. So it's a very exciting idea. Everybody loves this, but it's not ready for prime time today.
Okay, any additional questions? Okay, we had a motion and a second on amendment on 1068. Any vote? All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? Okay, the amendment carries. We now have 1068 as amended in front of us. Is there a motion?
Favorable.
Favorable from the sponsor, second from Senator Augustine. Discussion. All in favor, 1068 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed? That bill carries unanimously. Let's go to Dara. Why don't we go through your bills, and we're lucky, maybe Stacy will get back here. Okay, why don't we start with the 854, the Washington County Senators. 854.
Senate Bill 854, Agriculture and Nuisance Insects. This bill requires rather than authorizes the Secretary of Agriculture to implement a program to use Bacillus thuringiensis israelensis, or BTI, to control or eliminate nuisance insects in the state in accordance with the state budget and subject to specified existing notice requirements. The bill further requires rather than authorizes the Secretary to carry out a project under the program if the county or municipality in which the nuisance insects are located agrees to pay 50% of the costs associated with the project. There are no amendments. There is no opposition.
Okay, discussion, questions for Dara? Okay, we've got Senator Gallion with the motion favorable, second from Senator Augustine. Again, we're on Senate Bill 854. Clean, no amendments. All in favor, raise your hand. 854. All opposed? That bill carries. And we got Senator Hester back, so if we can get Stacy back, we'll be back in the game. Okay, Dara, let's go down to Senator Reedy's bill 1074.
So Senate Bill 1074, I can go through the explanation again. forget, I don't know if that's necessary or what the committee wishes.
Yeah, why don't you just refresh everybody's
Sure.
memory?
Um, Senate Bill 1074 Environment Industrial Sludge Utilization Permit Establishment. As amended, this bill establishes a food processing residuals utilization permit, which authorizes the holder to utilize food processing residuals in conjunction with an agricultural operation, which is defined in the amendment. The bill establishes requirements for utilizing the permit, application requirements, notice requirements on the part of the Department of Agriculture, requirements to maintain a permit in good standing, information requirements, right of entry for the department, and penalty provisions. The bill also establishes the Food Processing Residuals Administration Fund. The amendment requires the department, in consultation with MDE, Department of the Environment, to adopt certain regulations. Finally, the amendment authorizes the Department of Agriculture to administer a commercial hauler certification program. Senator, there is a standalone reprint of this bill. Senator Reedy has asked for a number of what in effect would be amendments to amendments, which I've itemized, and I was going to walk through this reprint one by one. The first is on page 4 of the reprint. It strikes the language beginning in line 16, strikes paragraph 8. If hauling food processing residuals provide all hauling routes from the food processing generator to the agricultural operation.
As we go through each of the amendments, if you have questions, we'll do it that way. Senator Gallion?
Mr. Chair, so I had a chance to work with the bill sponsor on this last night. So if you would like, each one, I could kind of go through the justification.
Yeah, I think that'd be very helpful. So, yes.
So for this first one, there's no other nutrient source, even biosolids, require disclosure of transportation routes. I see that as an overburden requirement. And, you know, if a transportation route changes unexpectedly, it could possibly be grounds for a permit violation. So that's why we work with the sponsor, proffered that one.
Why don't you just, any additional comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I have not found in the code another example of that language being used for a different permit.
Okay, you want to go to the next amendment?
The second amendment is on page 6 of the reprint. There's also a insert. There are 2 inserts at the back of your reprint. This is insert 1. It's on the second to last page of the package. This would change 8A06 subsection B to read: the department may not issue a permit to an applicant if, and then in the insert it reads, the applicant is subject to an enforcement action, consent order, or ongoing investigation by the department or the Department of the Environment, including actions regarding containment of surface water, groundwater, or soil contamination. The enforcement action, consent order, or ongoing investigation has been withdrawn or resolved, and a notice of violation has been issued by the department or the Department of the Environment.
Okay, Sir Gallion.
So for this one, the original language we had yesterday has, you know, talks about public health, safety, or welfare. And, you know, I was concerned that that can be broadly interpreted to possibly revoke a permit. And just for some background on this, we have probably 60 some farmers use this DAF material. And there's, to the best of my understanding, there's been maybe 4 that have kind of been what we talk about in committee a lot as the bad actors. So the goal is to try to alleviate the bad actors, but not to come down too hard on the good actors that are doing the program the right way. So with the insert on page 18 of the pack, it still leaves guardrails in effect, but it just tightens it down some, because there's really no definition of public health, safety, or welfare under the original thing. So this kind of tightens it up. and makes it, I think, a lot more clear. And I think that'll, for the farmers that are using this, I think that's gonna give them some assurance, honestly.
Derek, how many amendments are there, just so we have some,
4, I believe.
okay, why don't you go to the
Maybe there's
next
a
one?
5th one in here somewhere.
Okay,
Just to speak to this one, there is the language that was struck out in terms of issuing the permit. There is a similar provision on page 8 of the package, which deals with renewal. That would need to be lined up depending on the vote of the committee, but they should probably be mirror one another so that the provisions for issuance and renewal would line up together. Just to speak on the question of the definition of public health, safety or welfare, and I believe the definition of the environment was noted. I have spoken with the Attorney General's office about this as to whether there's a court case that has defined this. There is not. The Attorney General's office said that the terms are self-explanatory and they are used throughout the code in a number of articles. They are not defined anywhere.
okay, why don't you move on?
Amendment number 3 can be found on the bottom of page 15 of your package. It strikes out the language, the character of nearby existing land uses and transportation routes. It was similar to, I believe, Senator Gallian's point earlier about the hauling routes. Again, that language would be unique in the code were it to be included. There's also corresponding renumbering changes made on the next page.
Okay, back to you, Derek.
And then I believe finally on page 16, it's amendment number 4. Insert 2 on the last page of your package relates to this. It would change this provision to say that regulations adopted by the department may include acceptable nutrient application rates, including rates for nitrogen, phosphorus, and heavy metals. And the change would add consistent with recommendations developed by the University of Maryland for nutrient management.
Okay, anything to add, Senator Gallion? Okay, questions for either Senator Gallion, Dara on what he just went through. Senator Augustine.
Thank you, Chair Feldman. There was a lot of energy on this bill, meaning like there's a lot of people who are for and, whatever that testified. Is everybody on board with all of these changes? And have they had an opportunity to sort of digest it? I mean, it seems like there's a lot going on here.
So in relation to the bill was essentially rewritten by the initial changes. I believe that was a kind of consensus agreement of Department of Agriculture, Department of the Environment, Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I know the Maryland Association of Counties is now in support of this bill. The 4 amendments I went through today, I do not, and perhaps Senator Gallion can speak to that. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm just talking about the amendments. I know that you all have gotten it to there, but I'm saying with these amendments, do we know that everybody is still in that same posture?
I cannot speak to that.
So when I talked to the bill sponsor about that earlier.
You seen it?
Okay, sorry.
No, that's okay. I guess we do have the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. I mean, have you seen these amendments since you were part of the original? Yeah, we don't want to again do another.
just saying,
It was my understanding that the bill sponsor had reached out to MDA. I mean, I don't have that in writing or anything.
No, that's fair. I think just to Senator Augustine's point is, be good to, be good to, I mean, we could again, bump this till tomorrow and find out like what the deal is. That's, I think, the bottom line. I think where Senator Augustine's going with this. Have you seen these new amendments?
Not the specific text, but I had a chance to talk to the bill sponsor, Senator Reedy. So we're familiar with the concepts. Would say we don't necessarily think the amendments are necessary, but given the, proximity to crossover, if the committee wanted to adopt them and move the bill, we would be okay with
Okay,
that.
well, you said not necessary, so that's a little vague.
Yeah.
Not necessary, or are they undercut anything that you thought you were achieving, with the prior version of the bill without these amendments? I mean, or,
They're okay.
okay, I mean, that's really want to know.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, then, okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
That's fine.
Okay, yeah.
Move the whole,
We gotta move the
Pat,
amendments.
got to do those amendments first. So
Okay, let's
the,
do that.
okay, so is there a motion to move the amendments that you and that Dara explained and that you were back up on? Okay, is there a motion? For
Second.
second from Sarah Augustine. Okay, all in favor of these amendments, raise your hand. All opposed, those amendments now carry. We now have in front of us 1074 as amended. Is there a motion? Senator Gallion?
Second.
Second, motion favorable for Senator Gallion, second from Senator Augustine. All in favor, 1074. As amended, raise your hand. All opposed, that bill carries. Now we've got Senator Hester back in the room and we've got Stacy back in the room. So let's go up to Senate Bill 978. Senator Hester's bill and Stacy, we obviously, we did go through some of this yesterday. Actually, before we do that, let's go to 1035, which Senator Washington, I think yesterday had held. Let's rehash for the committee 1035.
Senate Bill 135, focusing Federal Career and Technical Education Act funds on Blueprint School to Work Apprenticeship Goals Act. This bill requires the State Board of Education to collaborate with the Career and Technical Education Committee to develop a 4-year plan for CTE education in the state, including submitting its 4-year plan for the administration of the federal Carl D. Perkins Career and Technical Education Act of 2006 Perkins to the CTE Committee for approval. The bill designates the Maryland State Department of Education as the sole state agency responsible for the implementation of Perkins. Beginning in fiscal 2025, the CTE Committee must review MSDE's proposed use of Perkins funds to ensure consistency with the blueprint for Maryland's future as specified. The bill expands the duties of the CTE Committee to include allocating funds received from Perkins. Finally, the bill makes conforming changes and repeals obsolete language. On page 26 of your packet are the amendments offered by Senator Rosapep, and these amendments would require the State Board of Education and the CTE Committee to work collaboratively on the 4-year state plan for CTE and ensure programmatic and fiscal alignment with the Perkins Act and the blueprint. MSDE and the State Board are retained as the administrator of funds received under the Perkins Act and also the sole entity for allocating funds. The governor is required to resolve any disagreement or disputes arising out of or in connection with the joint approval of the state plan.
Okay, yes,
Address my concern. So
yes. Okay, so
Favorable on the amendment?
got a favorable motion from
Second.
Senator Washington, a second from Vice Chair Kagan. All in favor of the amendments, raise your hand. Okay, those amendments carry. Senate Bill 1035 as amended is in front of us. Is there a motion from favorable from Vice Chair Kagan, second from Senator Augustine? Discussion? Okay, all in favor 1035 as amended, raise your hand. All opposed, that bill carries, which brings us to our final bill on the voting list, Senator Hester, and a continuation of our conversation yesterday on Senate Bill 978. I can't recall exactly where we left things. Yes.
I don't think we
Senator
actually did an official vote on 691,
Gallion.
Yes, we did.
did we? Because
Yeah.
because Stacy left and Senator Hester was out.
Yeah,
Finished it and then.
yeah,
Did we actually vote on it?
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we're good on
I think I
691.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's in August. I think Sarah Augustine would have been on top of that. I think that's a safe bet. Okay, so back to you, Stacy, on Senate Bill 978. I can't remember again how Senator Hester, do you recall yesterday where we ended on this the topic?
With lots of questions.
There were a lot of questions that I think we just decided to hold it at that point.
Yeah,
Oh, and we were waiting for Jared Demarinis. Where is Jared?
Jared,
Come on up, because you were taking all those notes and
he told me he took notes on all
Yeah.
the questions and he has all the answers.
okay, so we have our crack whip head of our State Board of Elections here this time, which we didn't have yesterday, to respond Okay, you were taking notes about all the questions. Why don't we let you see on your notes kind of what you can impart to us knowledge wise that you heard some questions we had around the town. That would be a good place to start, okay?
Sure. I guess Jared DeMarinis, State Administrator for the record, just, but one of the things was about, I would say, taking your photo, putting it on like a lobster or anything to that effect. That was that's satire. That's not a deep fake. The idea then also of using names on I would say a slate piece with endorsements, whether or not those candidates did endorse or not endorse, that's not a deep fake. That would be covered by different parts of the election law article, which is probably fraud, trying to induce a voter on that belief, and which is already currently illegal in Title 16. So I think that those are kind of like the bigger issues there. This is basically on whether or not you yourself use it to make yourself look a little bit better with, I would say, airbrushing. That's not necessarily a deep fake. That technology has been existing for a long time here. It goes to the definitional portion of it as well, which is I would say producing a fundamentally different understanding or impression of the individual's appearance. So slimming yourself just a little bit is not fundamentally changing it. Making sure that your hair or whatever is not necessarily fundamentally changing a person's impression of you, but as Senator Kagan had mentioned with the OJ reference, that was to try to fundamentally produce a different understanding of, OJ Simpson at the time. So that would be more on the lines of a deep fake, that was something that was altered in that regard here. And I think also to address Senator Augustine's, the 90 days, by focusing this all on elections and making it that it's only applicable to candidates and the agents of candidates, campaign finance entities, their agents, and independent expenditure groups that are trying to influence elections, by narrowing the scope, we don't need the 90 days because it's just like campaign material. Then there is no window in which, if you produce or if you send out campaign material today for your election in 26, it still has to bear the authority line on it because it's trying to influence voters. The same thing here is that it is not overly broad because, if a person is just trying to do a parody or something that is outside of trying to influence a vote, or to influence voters, it is irrelevant to what is going on for deep fakes. So by narrowing the scope, we can expand the time period in which it's applicable for that. So I think that was kind of overall the major of the questions here, but happy to answer any more and have the discussion.
Okay, well, thanks for coming in today. Senator Augustine, you can lead off.
Thank you, Jared, for that. Okay, so for the bill itself, the deep fake is what we are defining as synthetic media.
Yes.
In this bill, right?
Correct.
And it's your job to obviously to interpret and then the law. And so what you're sharing with me is that the way that you see this definition written, the way it is, the way that you described is how you're going to interpret this.
Yes.
And how you're going to interpret this language.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
So
I think at one point here, yes, you have to interpret these things to have a rational and reasonable result. And that's especially for enforcement actions. And that would be one of this is a reasonable interpretation that is defensible and, would be able to even be, I would say, supplemented with regulations to kind of further refine this to make sure that it's in that scope.
Oh, that helps. Thank you.
And the other part too, I think it was mentioning about foreign actors and the ones that you mentioned, what if they don't even play by all the rules here? That was also addressed in the enforcement portion of it. That was about the fact that we can seek to enjoin, and this is the state board, to the publication distribution of that synthetic media that related to election. Basically, because they would be in violation of the title, because one, they didn't register as a political committee, and then I can say, well, they didn't register, and we'd have to go to court. So the burden of proof then is on the state board to prove that this speech is in violation of it, and so we would have to meet all those hurdles before it comes off. I think the last question too was about the timeliness of everything here. This is, let me just say, if a deep fake goes out, it goes out, just like anything else, just like you're constantly, if there's an bad ad piece about it, at least now there's a little bit of a stopgap that one, we can point to and have the ability to kind of either remove it, especially if it's anonymous, or two, that they are not in compliance with it or force compliance with the idea of, that it didn't occur in reality, to augment the authority line on that front there, so that you would have the ability to react in an appropriate manner.
Okay, any additional questions for Jared? Okay. Okay, we've got amendments, correct? So, and you had described them previously. How, let's do a refresher on the amendments
Sure.
before we kind of vote.
If you look to page 20 in your packet, you will see the reprint. And what these amendments do, offered by the sponsor, Senator Hester, as described by Jared, is they narrow the applicability of the bill to candidates, campaign finance entities, and persons required to register because they make independent expenditures or electioneering communications and participating organizations or an agent of any of the above. They strike the definition of news media entity. They strike the harm to reputation prohibition. They strike the provisions requiring persons to submit certain media to the State Board of Elections. They strike provisions requiring the state board to adopt specified regulations. They strike the enhanced penalty amounts, and they change the effective date to June 1 from an emergency bill.
Okay, any questions for Stacy, Vice Chair Kagan?
I have a question, but I wonder if we want to get the amendments on the table first.
Sure.
Senator.
Yes, Senator Hester, the sponsor, moves favorable. Second from the Vice Chair. Okay, we have the amendments in front of us.
Thank you, Mr.
Questions?
Chair. On page 21, Stacy,
Yes.
under line 23, this section does not apply to. And I think it's a really good comprehensive list, and that makes sense. Our independent press and all that can't be governed under this. I'm just curious about the last line, that is not controlled by a candidate or political party. So what if there's a blog or how would one discern
So
whether something is
So Jared
actually
can answer this
controlled by-
because this is language that's already in statute.
yes.
Okay,
So this is already currently in statute for independent expenditures
Got it.
and electioneering communication. So it's consistent across the board then. And so, yes, it has survived constitutional,
perfect.
so moving
That
forward.
answers the question. Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Stacy.
Okay, Senator Carozza.
Mr. Chair, and thank you, Jared, for the explanation. You mentioned by kind of removing everything that the section does not apply to.
Mhm.
You mentioned that there were other parts of the law that would go after if there was a situation where a news organization or entity did in fact have knowledge that it might have been a deep fake and still went ahead. This wouldn't cover it, but would that candidate or that elected official have any other recourse to, when you said there's other parts of the law that they could pursue action?
Well, I would say that if if it's about your personal reputation, there's libel laws that you can sue off of that. If it's a fraudulent story or anything, I think that you can probably go after the newspaper for that, but I'm not.
So you have, that's.
I don't,
okay.
I'm not in, I guess the thing is, I'm not in the ability to regulate content because we've never been in that ability to say what is or what is not. And this goes into free speech elements as well as freedom of press with your question.
I think I was just looking for, I mean, I understand why we would narrow this. I guess I was just trying to, when you mentioned the other, that just that reassurance that if that was the case, a person would have recourse.
Yes.
Okay, any additional questions for Mr. Emeritus? Okay, we have a motion and a second on the amendments. All in favor of these package of amendments, raise your hand. All opposed, those amendments carry. We now have Senate Bill 978 as amended in front of us. Is there any further discussion? Motion? Okay, Senate Bill.
Might some of us want to join us?
Okay, would anybody, let's take up a sponsorship amendment. Okay, we've got, everybody raise your hand who wants to be on the sponsor line. We've got Senator Lewis Young. Who else? Anybody else?
Brooks.
Senator Augustine, Vice Chair Kagan, Senator
Brooks,
Brooks, Senator
Okay.
Feldman.
Mhm.
Anybody else? Going once, twice, three times? Okay. All in favor of the sponsor amendment, raise your hand. All opposed. That is now on the, as part of the favorable motion as amended. We'll incorporate that in. Is there a motion favorable on amendment? Okay, Senator Hester is favorable. Senator Kagan is a second. Discussion. Okay, let's do a roll call on this one, just to make sure.
All right, Senator Kagan?
Aye.
Senator Kagan, yes. Senator Augustine?
Yes.
Senator Augustine, yes. Senator Gallion? Senator Gallion, yes. Senator Watson?
Yes.
Senator Watson, yes. Senator Lewis Young?
Yeah.
Senator Lewis Young, yes. Senator Brooks?
Yes.
Senator Brooks, yes. Senator Carozza?
Yes.
Senator Carozza, yes. Senator Hester? Senator Hester, yes. Senator Washington?
Yes.
Senator Washington, yes. Senator Simonaire? Senator Simonaire, yes. And Senator Feldman?
Okay, resounding 11-0 vote for Senator Hester. 978 passes unanimously. Okay, folks, couple things. Okay, that concludes our voting for today.
Thank you.
If you can indulge Senator Washington, we've done this a little bit with some bills. We just kind of want to get the temperature of things and what's going on, what's the current. We did it with Senator Augustine. If you two have done it, Senator Elfreth came in yesterday. So Senator Washington has asked for an opportunity to just give an update on where things may be on the crematory bill that she brought to the committee. And we're not going to make this another bill hearing, okay?
We're in the
Oh, and we're going to top, yes, there's going to be an